And we are live. Okay, so hello Tog, welcome to stream. First thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna read through this. That suddenly got very quiet. Let's get this off. There. Okay, so the idea that I have been having this entire time with the mandates, I have been struggling to get out into words. And when my brother and I went on a walk the other day, I finally got it out because I had just been at work for like 6 hours and I'd been thinking about it. So, the basic idea is that you have a couple of different, yes, words. You have a couple of different levels of mandates, but they have different skill sets. And you'll see when we get into reading this what I mean by that. All I see is words, but I can't see them good. That's why I'm going to be reading them. So just give me a minute. Okay. So, a fantasy is a mandate whose abilities originate from the personal understanding of their powers. You can zoom it. I believe so. I can. Look at that. You should be able to see it quite well now, because I've got it on a fourth of my screen, so that's better. Sweet. Okay. So, a fantasy is a mandate whose abilities originate from their personal understanding of their powers. When a mandate first discovers their powers, they will most likely be a fantasy. Their powers will show themselves in how they understand things like magic and what their dreams are. They will generally be controlled by their deepest fantasies that have been given strength by their newfound power. At this stage, their powers are limited by what they believe they can do and are entirely controlled by their subconscious. At an innate level, they understand what to do as their powers have been studying the world for them, just as your ears listen for you as you sleep. So the basic idea there is that a mandate will be able to do what they understand as magic. So it's kind of explained a little bit better in the next paragraph. The main idea behind having this rank of mandate is to explain what happened with mandates before we had a scientific understanding of the world. It also allows for a juxtaposition between the skill of a master and the raw power of a fantasy. In this way, you would see how far these characters could fool themselves into believing what they want in the situation they are in. That's made incredibly easy as their powers are always there. Doubt ah, at any time they doubt the truth of their fantasy, they can use its power and see its effects to verify that it's real. Every newly created mandate's powers would be governed by their superstitions and fears. As an example, if they believe their village to be haunted by vampires, then discovered their powers by defending said village in a feat of strength, then their powers would transform them into their image of a vampire, further fueling the stories that these creatures exist and the fantasies of other mandates. So, prior to having a scientific understanding of the world, there were very few, if any, mandates that got out of being a fantasy. So the description of a fantasy was basically irrelevant. At this point, where we have a scientific understanding of the world, and the mandates understand how most of their powers work, where they can say, we know we're affecting the world at this scale, we can do that individually and say, I can change these particular atoms to get this effect. That's what makes the difference between a fantasy and a master. A master is able to choose what their powers do, whereas a fantasy is dependent on what their mind thinks their powers can do. So to become a master, a fantasy would have to break past their dreams and superstition and start experimenting with their powers, whether that be at another master's guidance or their own. When they do so, their fantasy begins to weaken as they second guess what they're doing. This may be very sudden or gradual depending on how a mandate took to accepting their powers. At this point, regardless of how powerful a fantasy they were, they hardly know how to do anything. They need to start studying the world on their own and learning how they can manipulate it with their powers. There would be a word to describe this phase, something akin to quasi-master, showing that that's a first aid kit. Hello, Heek! Okay, there would be a word to describe this phase, something akin to quasi-master, showing they are close to being a master, but they have a way to go still. At this point, they are starting to look at the world very systematically, understanding the elements they want to work with and how they function together. Yes, see, that's the point in this, is you can either be a master or a fantasy. You would still be able to make progress with a fantasy. Um, but the difference would be that you you would either be able to do things specifically, but you need to understand it in its entirety, or you could do things with very broad strokes, but you would be limited to your belief in yourself. Fantasy only works if you believe it will. Exactly. So if you have any doubts in your powers, or if you don't believe yourself to be able to do this task entirely, then it doesn't do anything. Geez, Tog, what are you doing? I don't even think he has that many sparks. You know, there's a fireworks show, right? I think it's like 15,000. Nope, fireworks don't show. No, like, watch. Okay. Da, 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 da. Let me see if I can pull this up. My shorts aren't working lately, so I've been having to do things weird. Yeah, I saw that, but watch. So, effects. Where did it go? Fireworks show. Ta-da! Yeah. And it costs 5 times as much, but it's still a thing. And you have to believe specifically that it works in the way it should according to the fantasy. However, this is flexible if you can change how you think about it. Exactly, Heek. But, of course, you have to have a very flexible mindset in that case. So we are going to work on the masters here. So I need to go stories, the mandates ascension. And then I have created a new folder here, power system. So in here, we're going to have the different folders for each one. So master. Have you talked about Masterworks? No, I haven't. Um, I was going to get into that after we got into master. 30k sparks. Nice. So we need to create a Google Doc. And I don't really feel like typing today, so I want to try something. I had this. Perfect. So, um, to start off, we need to label the document. The core. Is that going to type? Okay. Nice. The core of masters. I've been trying this one and the Windows one. I haven't had too much luck with the Windows one. But this should help with my hands as well as my handwriting, because as you can see, it's pretty bad. Okay, so masters are the could you put the music down and your voice loud? Sure. So music bumping down, and I can't really bump up my music anymore, but that should be good. Okay. See, this is where this starts to break. It makes it hard to do edits. Okay. The next Okay, my mouse got in the way there. The next step after I wonder if Tog doesn't like Ordinogan. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Masters are the next step after fantasies. They have. See, that's annoying. Okay. Ordinogan, never heard of it. Yeah, I've heard them before. It's kind of an interesting band. I don't really know how to describe it. They have. Okay, how would I describe this? We did a little bit of a description for Masters before. It's just not. It's just I couldn't hear him. Yeah, the music is kind of going back and forth on balances. So Why is this up here too? Oh, apparently it wants to go everywhere. Okay. Just showing up at the bottom of everyone. The band was beating his voice! Nice. Okay. They have a different... Okay. I actually don't know which way this goes. Different set of skills. Let me watch the stream, internet! No, it doesn't want to. A different set of skills than... come on. You can do this. Then... Fantasies. Okay. Let's go back. In that... Yeah, I'm trying. In that... They... This is going to be a challenge in of itself. Okay. In that they have... May. Okay, thank you. Have... Har. VE. Thank you. To... Understand I forgot you can get on Google. It's something that could help you make your words easy to read and better power words. What do you mean? That they have, in that they have to understand entirely what they are doing. Oh, come on. They are doing. Yeah, if this gets too painful, I'll just stop. See, and it doesn't let me do that or keys. It just like blocks all of my input to the document, which I don't understand. I have to delete the entire word to fix another word. Yeah. Okay. So, masters are the next step after fantasies. They have a different set of skills than fantasies in that they have to understand entirely what they are doing. This this makes okay, thank you. Them both limited thank you. Limited and I don't know what to name my new server is Pixelmon. You don't know what to name your server, or you don't know what to name? Not sure. This makes them both limited and larger or greater. You don't know what to name it. Togglemon. I don't know. Sounds almost like a Pokemon name. What is this? This makes them both limited and wider. Thank you. I did not want to have a space there. Name it Digimon is better. That works. Wider in scope. Oh my gosh, can you scope? Okay, our S is not actually that big compared to the rest of the characters. Okay, interesting. This makes them both limited. Can I change this? No? Can I change settings with this application? Options? Okay, can I configure you? Oh, now I've deleted English. Okay. Hmm. English, English. Thank you. Now, is that configurable at all? Oh, wait. I can set that to be a keyboard. I want to put U above that. Now, if I do this, I can do that. Now, do I have keyboard access? No, I don't. But if I do this, now switch to keyboard. What is this weirdness? Hmm. So this has just given me a digital keyboard, but it's still blocked me from... Okay. Yeah, we're going to turn this off for now. That's really broken. The Windows one was better as far as it gave me more control over the document, but... Okay. This makes them both limited and wider in scope. Now, I wanted to do limited in power and wider in scope in that a fantasy can do whatever is within the scope. I cannot answer a call at the moment. Please go away. Whatever is within the scope of their fantasy, with little to no limit. Whereas, whereas a master can do whatever they know how, as long as they have access to the required materials, either through transmutation. And yes, I realize I'm typing like crazy. Through? I managed to spell transmutation right. Okay. I was not expecting that. I'm dying right now because of the amount of typos. Okay. This makes them both limited in power and wider in scope, in that a fantasy can do whatever is within the scope of their fantasy with little to no limit, whereas a master can do whatever they know. Yes, that's totally how you spell know. They know how, as long as they have access to the required through materials, either through transmutation or what is around them. Sound good? Okay. Masters are the next step after fantasies. So is this for MC Capes? No. This is a story my brother and I are working on. Heek89 is my brother. That's why he was providing feedback when he came in. Masters are the next step after fantasies. They have a different set of skills than fantasies, and this is a double space, in that they have to understand entirely what they are doing. This makes them both limited in power and wider in scope, and that a fantasy can do... I feel like this is a really big run-on sentence, so I'm trying to figure out where I can split it. This makes them both limited in power and wider in scope, in that a fantasy can do whatever is within the scope of their fantasy with little to no limit, whereas a master can do whatever they know how, as long as they have access to the required materials, either through transmutation or what is around them. Like, seriously, that's all one sentence. That's like half a paragraph. I feel like that's a run-on sentence, but it seems grammatically correct. Okay, so this means that they have only one, yes I know, only one real limit. Trying. Ral, caught it. Real limit. The knowledge that they have about the world they live in. Okay. This means that they only have one real limit, the knowledge that they have about the world that they live in. The more a master knows, the more I'm going to time that one out. Versatile their skill set um, is. as they have the capability to transmute materials from one element to another as long as I can get through this, as long as they have the skill and knowledge to do so. Okay. Heek, thoughts so far? Need for speed typing. Yeah, I know. If I'm going to be doing this more often, I need to seriously take some typing classes. Heek, are you still alive? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where he went. I want his feedback on this. Okay, so masters are the next step after fantasies. They have a different set of skills than fantasies in that they have to understand what they are doing. This makes them both limited in power and wider in scope than a fantasy, in that a fantasy can do whatever is within the scope of their fantasy with little to no limit, whereas a master can do whatever they know how as long as they have access to the required materials either through transmutation or what is around them. This means that they only have one real limit, the knowledge that they have about the world they live in. The more a master knows, that requires a comma, the more versatile their skill is, as they have the capability to transmute materials from one element to another as long as they have the skill and knowledge to do so. Okay, sweet. I can't mix play. They probably timed you out. I didn't do anything about it. Look, still up. I did nothing. Okay. So I think that looks like a pretty good introduction statement. So now we need to start explaining the skill sets. So when a master loses their fantasy, they lose all access to prior skills. Access beyond an innate knack for specific forms of understanding, such as one mandate. Good job, Tog. Okay. Specific, such as one mandate might be better at thinking like a programmer and another like a blacksmith. Gotta go faster! Yep, okay. When a master loses their fantasy, they lose all access to prior skills beyond an innate knack. Inmate. Okay. Okay, so apparently our masters are now inmates. Who needs mix play when you have Mauve mix play? Yes. Innate. Okay. Innate knack for specific forms of understanding, such as one mandate might be better at thinking like a programmer and another like a blacksmith. This would, of course, determine the path they take after losing shroud of their fantasy, just as our innate skills determine our. Okay, what is the word here? Just as our innate skills determine our jobs or careers. I'm gonna go with careers. Careers in real life. Perfect. Prospective, I think. Okay. When a master loses their fantasy, they lose all access to prior skills beyond an innate knack for specific forms of understanding, such as one mandate might be better at thinking like a programmer and another like a blacksmith. This would, of course, determine the path they take after losing the shroud of their fantasy. just as our innate skills determine our prospective careers in real life. Thank you, Tog, for the host. Okay, so beyond this, we need to start mentioning what these paths are. So if we go, nice, Tog. You're gonna get banned again if you do it as soon as the cooldown happens. That's what you got. That's what got you banned in the first place. Okay. When speaking of paths a master can take, they are defined in very VAUGE terms. That is not how you spell vague. The U is before the E, not the G. Okay. Good thing I am giving you sparks. I don't think I get sparks from Mixer because I'm not a partner. No, I don't. I was at 516 before. Nope. Only partners do. Nope. Partners. The guys who actually like profit from Mixer. So, okay. So when speaking of paths a master can take, they are defined in very vague terms. Uh, yeah, I don't know why they don't make that a little bit more clear. But yeah, I don't think I actually get them. When speaking of paths a master can take, they are defined in very vague terms. Uh, da, da, da. You look at them more along the lines of groups of similarities rather than titles handed out by skill. Yeah, when they banned me, when I said give me my sparks back. Nice. Okay. So, when speaking of paths a master can take, they are defined in very vague terms. You look at them more along the lines of groups of similarities rather than titles handed out by skill. So the idea here being that you don't end up saying, oh, this person's a life crafter because they craft life specifically. Well, you don't define them as a life crafter and they stay as a life crafter. You don't define them as a life crafter and that's all they do, or because they do what other people do. You define them as a life crafter, but then they can be something else too. It's just they do something. Does that make sense? So, okay. I'm trying to think of how to say this. Um, Speaking of paths a master can take, they're defined in very vague terms. Okay. They are grouped together by... Yes, I'm aware. Okay. They are grouped together by general skill and an individual individual mandate can be a part of multiple of these classes. The main No, just by general skill. I think that works. I had meant to type that. It's a part that needs fixed. Okay. The main characteristic of these classes, spelled characteristic wrong as well as of, is that they define a type of, no, the way of accomplishing a task or the task itself. I.e. life crafting tool master. So is this how you work in real life? To a degree. Um, I don't read it out to myself generally until I'm done with a like a paragraph. So you'll notice I'll sit here and read it out to myself every now and then because I don't think in English generally. So when I'm trying to write things out, I'll end up with things that don't make any grammatical sense, or I'll end up putting words in there that just don't exist. So I'll have to read back through the sentence to make sure everything is actual English. Um, I don't have to do that as often when I'm reading it out as I'm writing. Yeah, it's rough. So I'll read back through it just to make sure it makes sense and my transitions are good, and I'll also catch general typos like missing commas or making run-on sentences. Um, so I'm sorry if I end up rereading something a lot. It's just so I know what I'm doing. So I'm pretty sure this last one here is becoming a run-on sentence. Lifecrafter or Toolmaster. Okay, so I need to read this last sentence. They are grouped together by general skill, and an individual mandate can be a part of multiple of these classes. The main characteristic of these classes is that they define a way of accomplishing a task or the task itself, i.e. Lifecrafter or Toolmaster. Okay, so yeah, this should not be a comma, it should be a period. Because both of those are their own sentences. Okay. And now is where we read through the whole thing to make sure we're transitioning between different sets of ideas pretty well. When a master loses their fantasy, they lose all access to prior skills beyond an innate knack for specific forms of understanding, such as one mandate might be better at thinking like a programmer and another like a blacksmith. This would of course determine the path they take after losing the shroud of their fantasy, just as our innate skills determine our prospective careers in real life. When speaking of paths a master can take, they are defined in very vague terms. You look at them more along the lines of groups of similarities rather than titles handed out by skill. They are grouped together by general skill, and an individual mandate can be a part of multiple of these classes. The main characteristic of these classes is that they define a way of accomplishing a task or the task itself, i.e. Lifecrafter or Toolmaster. Now I think I had mentioned, okay, this would of course determine the path they take after losing the shroud. Okay, when speaking of the paths a master can take, they are defined in very vague terms. Okay, so good. We didn't use the word classes before. When you said Toolmaster, I said Toolmaster in a deep voice, and my brother cried. Nice. Okay, so we're actually going to get into what a Toolmaster is later. I believe we already have a character that we're going to be looking at as our first Toolmaster. Characters, Hephaestus. So, Hephaestus is our first Toolmaster, and we're going to be trying to fit him into our current idea of what um, characters are supposed to be here. So, we're going to go back to the core of Masters. Hephaestus, the god of Sparta. No, I don't think Hephaestus. Hephaestus is Greek. Yeah, Hephaestus is the Greek god of fire. Sparta was Roman, wasn't it? Oh, it was Greek. Oh, I'm a moron. Okay, yeah. Then it would be Hephaestus. Greek or Roman. Sparta's defeat by the Thebes in the ancient battle of Leucrida ended Sparta's prominent role in Greece. However, it maintained its political independence until the Roman conquest of Greece. Okay, yeah, it was Greek. Libya. Roman building. Roman buildings in Libya. Well, we get to see a topographical map, and we get to see a couple of like meeting areas. So this is like a what's it called? Theater? Yeah, that's the word. And I have no idea what this was, but I'm assuming it had a roof at some point. So we're gonna assume that it's just gone now. Da, 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 da. This looks like it was a plaza of some sort. You know, everything just kind of looks like a plaza now that there's no roof, by the way. But yeah, their architecture back then was amazing. And the fact that this is still useful as a theater is just mind-boggling. It's just obviously there's no roof anymore. Because roofs last the least amount of time. Yeah, you could still use this as an amphitheater because I mean most of the things are outside because that's what they did, and it's still got a platform to stand on and places to sit. I'm pretty sure they've since replaced the wood though. There's a bigger one. Let's do this one and this one. Let's do that. This guy? This looks almost like this one. This is the one we were just looking at. This one? Yeah, this one looks amazing. Have you been there? You were on top of that. Nice. That seems like terrifying. And yeah, they've definitely replaced the wood. Because that's new wood. Okay, so let's get back to this. Hello, Nessa! Ow. You're not supposed to squish my finger. So I have 7 new voicemails and 5 missed calls. How does that math work? Nessa, the god of Wolfie! No, I don't think that's how it works. Okay, when a master loses their fantasy, they lose all access to prior skills beyond an innate knack for specific forms of understanding, such as one mandate might be better at thinking like a programmer and another like a blacksmith. This would of course determine the path they take after losing their shroud of their fantasy, just as our innate skills determine our prospective careers in real life. I'm talking as fast as I can without making everything one word. I apologize. This would of course determine the path they take after losing the shroud of their fantasy, just as our innate skills determine our prospective careers in real life. When speaking of the paths a master can take, they are defined in very vague terms. You look at them more along the lines of groups of similarities rather than titles handed out by skill. They are grouped together by general skill, and an individual mandate can be a part of multiple of these classes. The main characteristics of these classes is that they define a way of accomplishing a task or the task itself, i.e. life crafter or toolmaster. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's get a pop. So, we finished off with that paragraph mentioning the different classes. Now, the idea there is the classes would mainly be there to say these are different kinds of magic that they're using, or different tasks that they're trying to accomplish. So, you could say I'm a specialist in life crafting, or one of the things that Heek is wanting to do, and he's actually doing in his current fight, is myth crafting. It would be a subclass of life crafting in that you specialize in creating mythical or non-existent creatures. Whereas a life crafter would be able to do any kind of creature. A myth crafter would be able to create a creature that doesn't necessarily exist, and it would be their specialty. Um, a tool master would be somebody who's really, really good at forging tools. We kind of know what tools are at this point. Um, so if they so if they say they specialize as tool masters, as a tool master, then they're able to create tools that are specialized for a specific task. And something he had been discussing earlier, but seems to have disappeared now, was the idea of masterworks, and we're going to get into that later. Please don't spam them that fast. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to disable them because he keeps doing that. Or increase the cooldown. I might just increase the cooldown. Ooh, can I increase the cooldown dynamically? Settings. Static cooldown. Okay. Hmm. The cooldown of the button press determines the global cooldown. Individual cooldown. No global cooldown. Static cooldown. We're gonna do that, and we're gonna set it to 3 minutes. So it's in milliseconds. So I need to do. I get to change my name tomorrow. It's hard to hear Mauve. Huh. I wonder why that is. Huh. Nothing's really changed with my audio setup. It should be the same sound. Oh, okay. 60 times 3 times 1,000. 180,000 milliseconds. That's how long the cooldown's going to be. There you go. 180,000 milliseconds of cooldown. So we're going to do So Very Sad. And we should have 3 minutes of cooldown. Let's see. That would be a no. Oh, there we go. 3 minutes of cooldown. Perfect. So, now we won't get them spammed anymore. We'll only get them every 3 minutes. I liked it where it was, because that way you'd always be able to use it in a good situation, but if they're gonna get spammed, I gotta turn them off. Sad days. Okay. So, at this point they have to start looking, oh, we're on the wrong page. Help! Okay. I.e., Lifecrafter or Toolmaster. We're gonna start there. These would just describe what the mandate is comfortable doing, or what a specific task requires as far as an understanding. Imagine it similar to how we have different branches of science. Come on. Requires. Different. Each one technically as independent as it can be, but at the same time is often used with others and sometimes, no, and often required to do, what is the word? Not some, not things. I want to do something specific. It is often required to do certain tasks. I don't know about that one. Okay, so these would just describe what the mandate is comfortable doing or what a specific task requires as far as an understanding. Imagine it similar to how we have different branches of science, each one technically as independent as it can be, but at the same time is often used with others and often required to do certain tasks. Okay, I think that sounds good. So we're going to go to the next one. So if we look at the layout of this, good job, Tog. Okay. There is very little limit to what a master can accomplish in practice. Practive! Okay. Good job, Tog. Okay, practice. 2 minutes? No, it's 3 minutes. It's 2 minutes and an odd amount of seconds. Because it immediately starts. Hey, you started spamming them. We were talking about this. There is very little limit to what a master can accomplish in practice. Once a master has an understanding of where to gather energy and how to transmute forms of matter, they can accomplish most things. Things. However, there are cases. No. However, the biggest limit a master will come across. Gotta go faster. Working on it. Biggest. However, the biggest limit a master will come across is the ability to comprehend all of what they are trying to do in one moment. As that's required. Nessa. Oof, she's not there. Pretty sure she's there. She's just not listening. As that's required to do a spell. I'm here! Okay. Hi. No need to yell. I just want to shout. Why? Oh, you want me to shout. I just did. Good job. As it's required to do a spell, the more complex they get, the more mandates are generally required. Yeah, I'm not spelling that right anytime soon. Required to Nessa, we shall spam the mix play. So it's a global cooldown. It times out 3 minutes for everybody when you press it. Yeah, so you press it once, 3 minutes later, Nessa can press it. 3 minutes later, you can press it. 3 minutes later, Nessa can press it. So yeah. As that's required to do a spell, the more complex they get. Let's do a spell gets. The more mandates are generally required to do larger. The larger a task gets. Mix play, I'll pay you $1 and make it 1 second. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a good idea. As that's required to do a spell, the more complex a spell gets, the more mandates are generally required, the larger a task gets. To bypass this, masters can use tools to make spells easier. Tools are made of materials that have something, that are attached to the task by a god. Wait, Mob, no joke. If only my PayPal gets better, I can pay $10, but only if it works. Why would you pay me $10? That's what I want to know. To bypass this, the masters can use tools to make spells easier. Tools are made of materials that are attached to the task by a god. Mob, I'll just take your PayPal email and I can send you. I don't think I have a PayPal email. I'm not sure. I have a Minecraft page, but let's see. This one. Ta-da! What on earth is Minecraft PayPal? That doesn't even sound like a good idea. Okay, so there is very little limit to what a master can accomplish in practice. Once the master has understanding of where to gather energy and how to transmute forms of matter, they can accomplish most things. However, the biggest limit a master will come across is the ability to comprehend all of what they are trying to do in one moment. As that's required to do a spell, the more complex the spell gets, the more mandates are generally required to. The more complex the spell gets. Yes. Okay. So this is where I'm saying I cannot speak English. As that's required to do a spell, the more complex the spell gets, the more mandates are generally required, the larger a task gets. That's not that doesn't make sense. No. It's not comprehensible. There. To bypass this, the masters can use tools to make spells easier. Tools are made of materials that are attached to the task by a god. Gods are generally the generally no. Gods generally come from masters, as they have the ability to da, 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 da. What is it called? Mauve is killing my brother with these masters and gods. That's the point. As they have the what is his word? So it's like a predisposition. Thank you. And I need to figure out how to spell that. Predisposition. A liability or tendency to suffer from a particular condition, hold a particular attitude, or act in a particular way. Thank you, Thesaurus of Mauve. Okay, predisposition. So they have the predisposition to not influence. Inspect. Inspect the world and take the most advantage of their powers. Perfect. Advantage. Okay, perfect. So, we're going to read through this one more time, and then we're going to move on to redefining gods. Okay, let's do that. Masters are the next step after fantasies. They have a different set of skills than fantasies, and that they have to understand entirely what they are doing. This makes them both limited in power and limited in power. That seems weird. Okay, this makes them both limited in power and wider in scope in what a fantasy can do. In that, a fantasy can do whatever is within the scope of their fantasy with little to no limit, whereas the master can do to, whatever they know how to, as long as they have access to the required materials, either through transmutation or what is around them. This means that they have only one real limit, the knowledge that they have. Okay, we need to do two. The knowledge that they have about the world that they live in, and the amount of information they can conceive. Conceive of. Okay. Da, 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 da. Is it not gonna? Thank you. Okay. Conceive of. The more a master knows, the more versatile their skill is, as they have the capability to transmute materials from one element to another, as long as they have the skill and knowledge to do so. When a master loses their fantasy, they lose all access to prior skills beyond an innate knack for specific forms of understanding. Such as one mandate might be better at thinking like a programmer, and another like a blacksmith. This would of course determine the path they take after losing the shroud of their fantasy, just as our innate skills determine our prospective careers in life. When speaking of paths a master can take, they are defined in very vague terms. You look at them more along the lines of groups of similarities rather than titles handed out by skill. They are grouped together by general skill, and an individual mandate can be a part of multiple of these classes. So how many pages are you going to make? Well, I plan on spending the whole 2-hour stream doing this. Um, so we've got the core of masters to do. We're going to revive Hephaestus, and we are going to work on gods. So that would be stories, the mandate ascension, power system, and god. So we have what are gods. I'm going to make a new file, take some of the information from this one, and it's going to be the core of gods. We're going to close these. So Hephaestus, what are gods, the core of masters. Okay. The main characteristics of these classes is that they define a way of accomplishing a task or the task itself, i.e. Lifecrafter or Toolmaster. These are just describe what the mandate is comfortable doing or what a specific task requires as far as an understanding. Imagine it similar to how we have different branches of science, each one technically as independent as it can be, but at the same time is often used with others and often required to do certain tasks. There is a way to make this thing like, let's say your brother is on, he can type with you. Yeah, you can do that too. Check it out. Click the link. You can come in and do suggested edits and comments and stuff. The whole folder, this one, is actually shared. So you can come in here and look at all of these. That's a direct link to this page. So you'll be able to come in here and do comments and suggest edits and stuff. Yep, as long as you have a Google account. So this should be you. You are the anonymous Wolverine. I'll post a link to the What Are Core of Gods page when we move to it. There is very little limit to what a master can accomplish in practice. Once a master has an understanding of where to gather energy and how to transmute forms of matter, they can accomplish most things. However, the biggest limit a master will come across is the ability to comprehend all of what they are trying to do in one moment, as that's required to do a spell. The more complex a spell gets, the more mandates are generally required. To bypass this, mandates can use tools to make spells easier. Tools are made of materials that are attached to the task by a god. Gods generally come from masters as they have the predisposition to inspect the world and take the most advantage of their powers. Oh, Hika's messaged me. Sob, he left. Want to join again? Okay, so I think that sounds pretty good. We did a couple of corrections. Um, Tog, if you end up making any changes in here, let me know and I'll come back and check. For now, let's go to this. Power, System, God, Google Docs, create and share. I work for Mov now. I mean, that's kind of what these streams are. Um, People generally, like the past 3 streams I've done of this, 2 streams, um, we have basically gone through and worked on, where is it? Arcs, first fight, Mov's fight, and attack approaches. We've worked on this. So this has been my past 2 streams. People come in and make comments and suggest edits, so that everything is um, cohesive. So, done 3 pages so far, pretty good. But I wanted to take a break from that today and do this. The core of gods. Okay. So, let me post a link in here, and now you can join this one too. We're going to close the core of fantasies, just to make sure you haven't changed anything in here just yet. So I'm going to open you here. We need to zoom out a little bit. Can you still read that okay? Okay. I'm just needing to read both of these at once at the moment. Okay, gods are beings that have such an understanding of an action or force in the universe that they can make full use of it. As an example, gravity. Adding gravity to an object would require taking it from another using the hard magic system. As instead of creating gravity, you are moving the force itself. With a soft magic system, assuming you have an affinity for it, you would be able to add any amount of gravity to an object, would require energy. To become a god, a person must convince one or more other gods that the action or force they have is worth bringing to the table and that they are competent in it. Ideally, such a person would only be using the hard magic system to accomplish their task, but in extreme circumstances, it could require the use of another affinity as well. When becoming a god, the mortal gains access to a near infinite pool of energy that is shared by all gods. This pool slowly trickles between them and is fed by each individual god. If one god were to use a large enough amount to start draining this pool, then the ones closest to them would feel the effects. Imagine pulling syrup from underneath. You end up with a local drop in volume as the rest of the pool slowly fills the hole, as opposed to water where the level is gradually constant across the whole of the body. Gods also have the ability to gain what are temporarily known as subs. They are gods that are below them by being below them, they prevent the higher god from being killed, but take some of the god's domain away as the sub has to be connected in some way to their affinity. In addition to subs, gods can also gain followers. Followers are general mandates that by being a follower gain increased strength in their affinity. This increases the individual god's energy pool as well as that of their subs. Okay, so a lot to unpack there, and some of which has changed. I do not think that we are doing a hard and soft magic system anymore, because we have uh, fixed the ranking system, which was the main point in the hard and soft magic system. So we're gonna have to reword that, as well as the affinities main point. What about main point? I'm confused. Oh, by the way, you're an anonymous frog now. Okay. Um, but most of this is right. These two we haven't talked much about since writing this. Um, this one he still does not agree with whatsoever. And then yeah, this one needs reworded too because there's no hard magic system anymore. Okay, so let's get on this. I just wanted to get a recap on that one. Heek never agrees all the time. I think Nessa is taking a pic on Insta. Who knows? Apparently she's not. Okay, so gods are mandates who have such a great understanding of a force or task that Tog left chat. Tog. Oof. Okay. Such an understanding of a force or task that. Okay, hold on. Tog, now that you're back, this is literally what I saw when you left. So yeah, that's a thing. Okay. So such an understanding of a force or task that they, oof, internet, nice, that they convinced a god related to their affinity. How do you spell affinity? Oh, there we go. No, we didn't. It's two F's. What am I kicking? Oh, that's a heater. Okay. Gods are mandates. Oh, that's the wrong thing. I hate dentists now, Mauve. I have to have my wisdom teeth removed on Thursday. So, yeah, like all four of them. Gods are mandates who have such a great understanding of a force or task that they convinced a god related to their affinity that they would be a good fit for sharing this thing with the world. Sounds good to me. A female helper of the dentist I have was sick and got me sick. Ouch. Nessa, I took a vid last 2 days of me driving. Vroom vroom. Good job, Tog. Okay. Gods are mandates who have such a great understanding of a force of tasks that they convince a god related to their affinity that they would be a good fit for sharing this thing with the world. Okay, where are we going to go from there? Because that's a pretty vague understanding that covers all of it. This understanding generally boils down to its uses and relation to the physical world. Because you said okay. Why did I need to know that? Because you said I took a pic on Easter. Okay, okay, you're mental. XD, I'm not. Um, I mean, you brought up something completely unrelated. Another thing completely unrelated. Yeah, you don't make any sense. That means you're mental. Welcome to the club. Okay. So this understanding generally boils down to its uses in relation to the physical world, i.e., gold and electricity. Stop pressing what? I didn't even hear anything. It must be too quiet for me. I can actually turn it down for you guys. Hold on. There, I've turned it down by half. What do you mean edit? I can't type. You're typing right now. I don't understand. I.e. gold and electricity. Where was I going with that? Oh, no, okay. So you should be able to do this and then do editing. Or no, suggesting. Right? And then you should be able to start typing and it'll show up as a suggestion. Do you have a Google account? Because you kind of need one to do that. Let me see. Where is my main thing? This one. Ah, okay, hold on. More. Da, 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 da. No, let's not do that. No, don't do that. Hold on. It's not letting me change it globally. I heard that one. Let's click that. I just want to do. Ed, I just wanted you comment. I was able to do that for individual files. I don't want you to be able to edit it though. I want you to be able to comment. See, I can do that for individual files. Okay, try that. It's not letting me change it for the whole folder. It's only letting me do it for individual files. See, look, now you have a cursor. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna need more space now. So now you should be able to do edit or suggesting edits. Okay. This understanding. Oh, okay. Resolve. Um, the understanding generally boils down to its uses and relation to the world, i.e., gold and electricity. Materials would be chosen by the god and their understanding of the task slash force by their understanding by the god and their understanding of the task slash force that allow for the affinity to be used. This would be the main reason to become a god. You are granted dominion over a force or task, allowing you to do it with little to no effort at no cost. Welcome back, Nessa. Okay. Nice. Okay. Gods are mandates who have such a great understanding of a force or task that they convince the god related to their affinity that they would be a good fit for sharing this thing with the world. The understanding generally boils down to its uses and relation to the physical world, and i.e. gold and electricity. Materials would be chosen by the god and their understanding of the task. Okay. Materials for the affinity would be chosen by the god and their understanding of the task slash force that allow for the affinity to be used. This would be the main reason to become a god. You are granted dominion over a force or a task, allowing you to do it with little to no effort at no cost. This would allow you to expand upon what you are doing as when you write things, no write spell, just leave it at the end and we'll try to fix it. Okay. This would allow you to expand on, okay, no, let's keep away from doing that. This would allow them to expand on a spell by leaving most, if not all, of the cost or focus of the spell up to their affinity. Da, 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 da. Oh, you got it. Or not. Okay. Leaving it up to their affinity. This is better explained in the page on affinities. I thought you were going to edit, so I just left it. Nice. Okay. This is better explained in the page on affinities. So, the basic idea behind a god is you're able to create a material. Well, you don't create the material. You create a link between a material and a task. This makes it to where people can bypass the need to focus on the task without, while still accomplishing the task. So as stated here, we're going to be working on that in the page on affinities. Gods may also have other abilities such as fix. Okay. Such as, sorry. Okay. Such as having followers that increase a collective energy pool and prevent the god from being killed. Sorry, I'm not used to having to deal with that just yet. When I try to edit it, it comes 2. No, that's because I'm accidentally fixing it too. Okay, I think we're set there. So, gods may also have other abilities such as having followers that increase the collective energy pool and prevent the god from being killed. This is currently up for debate as the main purpose of gods is listed above. Anything else would just expand upon the nature of what gods do in the climate of the mandates. There you go. Okay. So we're going to go down here, and now we need to discuss subbing elements. So the main idea so far as to the hierarchy of the gods is that there are 2 at the top of the system that pertain to space-time and energy. Every god, through some convoluted path, ends up tracing back to these 2. The path follows what is most required for the action or force that the god specializes in. Perfect. As an example, you could have a god of life that would be under the god of... Okay, so we need to think of a couple of other gods that would be necessary and useful for life. Let's do this. So gods of energy, death, and there's one more that's on the tip of my tongue. What is it called? Let's do form. I think that works. Energy, death, and form. So if you think of um, life as form given energy, so form. So it's a philosophical idea that um, you can have a concept of a phone, what it does, the tasks uh, it it performs, and what you do with it, right? But then it could be in any shape. If I tell you everything about a phone, you use it to make phone calls. It has a microphone and a speaker. You can throw it and it breaks. It. Oh geez. What is there about phones that can describe a phone in particular? Um, it's a staple of modern life. But then I show you this. If those are the only things you know about a phone, are you going to say this is not a phone? But then I'd have to explain the form of the phone. So a form is the shape of it. What exact, like, uh, not shape, it's like idea. Like, you would recognize this as a phone, no matter if it was a little bit longer or wider or thicker. You recognize a chair as a chair because of its form. It looks like a chair. It has somewhere to sit. It has armrests. It doesn't have armrests. It has a backrest. It doesn't have a backrest. You know what a chair is. That's kind of what form is. It's just a general idea of shape and function, kind of combined. So you can identify something by its form. So there'd be a god of form for adding um, like an affinity that makes it easier to convince or to conceive of the shape of an object, um, as an example. Okay, so as an example, you could have a god of life that would be under the gods of energy, death, and form. Nessa is dead. I don't think Nessa is dead. Okay, sweet. So, the main idea so far is as to the hierarchy of the gods is that there are two at the top of the system that pertain to space-time, and energy. Every god through some convoluted path ends up tracing back to these two. The path follows... Oh my gosh, why am I down here? Follows what is most required for the action or force that the god specializes in. As an example, you could have a god of life that would be under the gods of energy, death, and form. Da, 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 da. To become a god, you want to find affinities for one affinity that is as specific as you can get. This makes the resulting affinity cheaper to use. Yes, I've spelled... you don't need a capital F there. Okay. This makes the resulting affinity cheaper to use, so a god will always be looking for more gods to define their affinity. Did I spell it right that last time? Yes, I did, but I didn't spell there right. Delete space, change yo to 2, sweet. Okay, I think we got that one done pretty well. So gods are mandates who have such a great understanding of a force or task that they convince the god related to their affinity that they would be a good fit for sharing this thing with the world. Am getting paid. Sadly not. Um, that they convince the god related to their affinity that they would be a good fit for sharing this thing with the world. This understanding generally boils down to its uses in relation to the physical world, i.e., gold and electricity. Materials for the affinity would be chosen by the god and their understanding of the task/force that allow for their affinity to be used. This would be the main reason to become a god. You are granted dominion over a force or task, allowing you to do it with little to no effort at no cost. This would allow them to expand on a spell by leaving most, if not all, of the cost or focus of the spell up to their affinity. This is better explained in the page on affinities. This is just for fun. This is called just for fun money. Kind of. My basic idea around this is that you don't often get to take part in the creation of a story. Um, so I figured people might want to, join in on that. And people seem to like really enjoy it so far. So I always end up with people staying around to this stream. It's really engaging. Um, this would be the main reason to become a god. You are granted. Already went through that. This is better explained. Went through that. Gods may also have other abilities, such as having followers. Okay, see you later, Tog. Such as having followers that increase the collective energy pool and prevent the god from being killed. This is currently up for debate as the main purpose of gods is listed above. Anything else would just expand upon the nature of gods, of what gods do in the climate of the mandates. I'm not going yet. Oh, okay. I didn't see the faster before you deleted it. All I said was gotta go. Okay. Got it. The main idea so far is the hierarchy of the gods. As to the hierarchy of the gods, there are two at the top of the system that pertain to spacetime and energy. Every god, through some convoluted path, ends up tracing back to these two. The path follows fast. Okay. Anything? No. Where am I? Every god, through some convoluted path, ends up tracing back to these two. The path follows what is most required for the action or force that the god specializes in. As an example, you could have a god of life that would be under the gods of energy, death, and form. To become a god, you would want to find affinities under or one affinity that is as specific as you can get. This makes the resulting affinity cheaper to use, so a god will always be looking for more gods to define their affinity. Define your affinity. So you want me to do the affinity page next? Is that what you're saying? What is this song? I pulled out like a really old playlist. Day of the Dead. Okay, I'm gonna actually bump this up for me. Put. What are you doing? Okay, so did you want to do the affinities page next? Not sure. Well, we're kind of done with the gods page at this point. A lot of what needs to be done beyond this, Heek and I need to talk about. So we are not. How about me am the god of cake? Well, if you can tell me what philosophical gods you'd have to convince to be the god of cake, maybe I would name the god of cake Tog. um, yeah, if you can come up with 5 philosophical ideas that define cake, then yes, I will name the god of cake Tog. Sound like a bet? Okay. Yeah, let's go do the affinities page. Got it. Okay. Power system, the mandate's ascension. Now we already have this. I kind of want to create a new document for this though. This section of the song is so weird. I can hardly hear it. Working on it. Okay. Need to figure out what to name it first though. I have not listened. Oh, it's playing recommended songs, is it? Yeah, this isn't in here. Hmm. Okay. Untitled document. What to name this one? We have affinity system, creation, elements, knowledge premise, basis of affinities. Okay, sweet. Now we need to share. Advanced, and anyone with the link can comment. Save, and I would like to copy this link. There you go. Okay, so affinities. Affinities are. Ooh, what's a good description? Something that defines the form of an affinity. I'm thinking ethereal, but that's not what I'm looking for. It's like. Hmm. My thesaurus is failing at the moment, so I'm gonna Google one. Ethereal synonym. Delicate, exquisite, dainty, elegant, graceful, beautiful, lovely. I don't think any of those match. Let's go to thesaurus.com. Airy, celestial, exquisite, ghostly, intangible, sublime, aerial, dainty, divine, imperial. What is this? Empyrean, filmy, fine, gaseous, gossamer, impalpable, insubstantial, light, rarefied, refined, spiritual, subtle, supernal, tenuous, unearthly, unsubstantial, unworldly. Let's look at these. What is this? I want to see the definition of it, please. Pertaining to the highest heaven in the cosmology of the ancients. Yeah, no. We're going to go somewhere else. I'd imagine this is going to be pretty similar. The highest heaven, supposed by the ancients to contain the pure element of fire. Okay, yeah, we're going to go somewhere else. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know there. Affinities are the trying to come at this a different way. Affinities are the something that defines the most specific. What's up, Tog? Put on this music. I can't do YouTube. Yeah, but I can't do YouTube songs. I listen to Spotify. Affinities are the essential. There we go. Essential understanding of a task, skill, or force. They are bound to specific materials materials or why do I keep getting hung up on this? Materials or objects. Lori. Okay. They are bound to specific materials or objects by gods of that affinity. Go like Tog. Nice. Okay. Go away. Perfect. You can just cancel it over here, by the way. Why'd you delete my Y? Okay. Affinities are the essential understanding of a task, skill, or force. They are bound to specific materials or objects by gods of that affinity. By using in affinity... no. Let's do it this way. An affinity allows for... No. An affinity is an easier way of accomplishing the task it defines. By using the affinity, you don't have to focus on the task it is for. Okay. As an example, if you had a tool built for the affinity of life, you could create life. No, that's infinity. So here. Infinity. Okay, that's not helpful. Definition. The state or quality of being infinite. So infinite is like, I have a finite number of these. You probably can't see that. So there are like little sticks sticking out of the end of this. I have a finite number of those. The opposite of finite is infinite. Yeah, it's like I don't have a limit on how many of these little sticks I have. Affinity. Let me go ahead and look up the definition of that. A spontaneous or natural linking or sympathy for someone or something. A similarity of characteristics suggesting a relationship, especially a resemblance in structure between animals, plants, or languages. A relationship, especially by marriage, as opposed to blood ties. So it's the similarity between two objects, a linkage between two ideas or objects, or a linkage between two people, basically. It basically just means two things are similar, or it's a way to link two things. So when you're talking about a magic system, an affinity is a way, generally, to make a task easier, or it's your ability to make a task easier as opposed to somebody without that affinity. So if you have an affinity for water, then you can do water magic easier than somebody who has an affinity for fire or who doesn't have any affinity at all. Make sense? Sweet. So, you could create life without having to hold the entirety. Mauve is the English teacher now. Totally. You could create life without having to hold the entirety of life in your mind. Let's do it this way. The entirety of... Oh, can I not do that, please? The concept of life in your mind. This both allows you to do large tasks faster, as you won't have to build each part separately, but you will be... No, why do I keep doing you? This both allows them to... Oh my gosh! Why do I keep switching into this? I keep switching as if I'm talking to a mandate, and I don't want to do that. Yeah, as an example, if a mandate had a tool built for the affinity of life, they, could create life without having to hold the entirety of concept in there. I keep switching, what is it called? Tenses? It's not tenses. Perspective. I keep switching perspective. So I want to put it in third person perspective, but I keep switching to first person perspective, and it's getting annoying. This both allows them to... Oh, geez, I completely forgot what I was saying. Okay, thank you. I forgot it again. Do larger tasks faster, so you won't have to build each part separately. Build larger parts faster. As you won't have to... Oh my gosh, I did it again. As they won't have to build each section of it individually. No, as they won't have to hold each part of the life separately. It's 3:45 p.m. tomorrow. I gotta go on the trip to the mountain. So see you next time when you stream. I will be streaming. I'm off Thursday, Friday, and Saturday because I'm having my wisdom teeth done. But I will be streaming next Tuesday. Probably this again too. So separately next Tuesday. Yep. Tomorrow I'm streaming, but it's at like noon. Yeah, noon. I don't know what time it is for you right now though. Basically 7 hours before now tomorrow. This allows them to build larger tasks faster, as they won't have to hold each part of the life separately. Okay. See you later, Tog. They won't have to hold the entirety of life in their mind at once, leaving room for the rest of the task. Okay. Affinities are the essential understanding of a task, skill, or force. They are bound to specific materials or objects by gods of that affinity. An an affinity is an easier way of accomplish the task. Of accomplishing the task. Got it. Of accomplishing the task it defines. By using the affinity, you don't have to focus on the task it is for. As an example, if a mandate had a tool built for the affinity of life, they could create life without having to hold the entirety of the concept of life in their mind. This both allows them to build larger tasks faster, as they won't have to hold the entirety of life in their mind at once. Let's just do concept. Concept of life in their mind during the task. Okay, leaving room for the rest of it. Perfect. Okay. This means that affinities are a good way to do large tasks such as building large life forms, com complex healing, the building of large and strong structures, doing small and refined transmutation, and other such tasks that require a large amount of focus. Okay, let's get this fixed. Okay. Affinities are used at a cost, though. They require, no, they generally require more energy than doing the task that they are, than doing it on without the affinity. This seems really worded weird. Let's see. Affinities are used at a cost, though. They generally require more energy than doing the task that they are then doing it. Okay, let's reword this last part. They generally require more energy than doing the task itself. That's simple. Okay, affinities are used at a cost, though. They generally require more energy than doing the task itself. This is reduced by having more gods above the god defining the affinity, allowing, no, in incentivizing gods to look for gods above related to their affinity to further define it. Doing so could come at a personal cost or personal cost or 1 to the affinity. As an example of, I want to make an example of costing the affinity. As an example of costing the affinity, if the god that was added is far up the chain, you could need a material from them to use the object at a greatly reduced cost to use the affinity. Okay, let's read through this, and then we are actually going to end it here. Affinities are the essential understanding of a task, skill, or force. They are bound to specific materials or objects by gods of that affinity. An affinity is an easier way of accomplishing the task it defines. By using the affinity, you don't have to focus on the task it is for. As an example, if a mandate had a tool built for the affinity of life, they could create life without having to hold the entirety of that concept in their mind. This both allows them to build larger tasks faster as they won't have to hold the concept of life in their mind during the task, leaving room for the rest of it. This means that affinities are a good way to do large tasks such as building large life forms, complex healing, the building of large and strong structures, doing small and refined transmutation, and other tasks that require large amounts of focus. Affinities are used at a cost, though. They generally require more energy than doing the task itself. This is reduced by having more gods above the god defining the affinities, incentivizing gods to look for gods related to their affinity to further define it. Doing so could come at a personal cost or one to the affinity. As an example of costing the affinity, if a god that was added is far up the chain, you could need a material from them to use the object at a greatly reduced cost to the affinity. To use the original, no, let's do defined. To use the defined affinity. And then let's do from their affinity. Okay, I'm happy with that. So, tomorrow, I'm not sure what I'm doing just yet. I guess I will figure it out then. I'll try and post an update in the streaming channels sometime in the morning to see what I'm doing. I will talk to you all tomorrow, and have a nice night. I think we made a lot of progress.